Hi guys. So today's I'm just kidding. So today we're going to be talking about craft work, spell work, love spells, and things of the like. Everybody loves this topic, right? But before I get into this information, I'm going to give a disclaimer to its content. In the world of witchcraft, there are two different types of energetic implementation. There is black magic and there is white magic. You could be a white witch or you could be a black magic woman. Okay? The thing that separates the two from each other is an adherence or an abidance to the Wiccan Rede of Three, the universal tenet among witches that specifically states that any energetic influence that you put out into the world will always be returned back to you threefold. It won't be exacted back to you. It's not like karma. It will be returned to you times 3. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to tell you a story, a personal story about a time where I learned of the negative effects of the Wiccan Rede of Three the hard way. So this was about 4 years ago. I had gotten it in my head and decided to perform a love spell on my boyfriend at the time, who I'd actually already been with for 6 years. So I waited for him to go to bed, and I waited till the witching hour. We're in the same time zone, obviously, of 3 a.m. And I went into the next room and I performed this spell. And as I was closing out my circle, as I was closing out the spell, I heard a loud crash from the next room. And I heard him go, "What the fuck?" And I go into the room and I look down on the floor and there was a mirror laying face down, broken in half, that had come off the wall over a laundry basket onto the floor. He went back to bed, but in the next morning, he wakes up and asked me what it was all about, and I just acted all innocent. But instinctively or intuitively, I took that as confirmation that my spell had worked. And it did, or so I thought. See, my original intention for this spell was that of a love spell, but what ended up happening through my black magic efforts was I bound this individual to me. And it would become increasingly evident over the next few years that I got this love spell all wrong. The universe is not set up in a way that allows witches or people to go around spattering bad juju at people. And so where I was trying to implement a love spell onto him, I was falling within the category of black arts, and I wasn't being mindful of all of what would later go on to be an extreme effect of binding that I had put onto this guy. And it took a really long time to reverse this spell, and I'm actually still to this day feeling the effects of this. And at the time that I performed this spell, I knew of the Wiccan Rede of Three. I just chose not to really understand it. So understand that nobody is exempt from the universe's laws, and nobody's exempt from the hermetic principles, as I was not at the time that I performed this. And so learning you don't have to learn things the hard way, or maybe you do, to be able to comprehend the gravity of your energetic implementations, your spell work. So just use this disclaimer as my personal warning to you and my personal testimony to you that if you want to perform things on the black magic side of witchcraft, you are going to feel the effects of it thereafter. So in this video, we're going to be talking about craft work and how it works, okay? When witches want to perform any type of spell, whether it is black or white, they go and they set up their environment to foster access to their subconscious. So there are 4 planes of existence. Matter, there's a material plane, a spirit, an energetic plane, a mental plane, mind, matter, spirit, energy. There is a mind, mental plane, a material, physical plane, a spiritual plane, and an energetic plane in life. The hermetic principle of mentalism, the first hermetic principle, and I'll put a link to my video where I go over the 7 hermetic principles in my description box. The first hermetic principle specifically states that everything in life, in the physical realm that you can experience, everything in 3D happens as a manifestation from thought. Thought precedes every phenomenon that you can witness occurring in your physical life around you. So, to be able to effect a change around you in your physical environment, witches will go into a space where they have access to that mental plane first, because that is where change begins, in the mental plane. And the mental plane on earth is embedded within a person's subconscious brain. So witches will set up in their environment to make it easier on themselves to be able to access their subconscious. It is likened to the Christian form of praying. So I am actually a Christian, and in a video, I'll probably put it out around Christmas time. In a video, I'll get into how I am able to simultaneously call myself a witch and a Christian at the same time. I'll do that at a different time, but for now, I'll spell it out as this. I never knew whatsoever what Christianity was until I knew what witchcraft was. And I knew what we were able to do, how we were able to do it, how we misused all of these abilities, and why it needed to be taken away, or why there needed to be a paradigm shift in the way that we were operating amongst ourselves within a black magical capacity, right? So like I said, I never understood Christianity until I understood witchcraft, and I don't believe anybody ever really understands Christianity until anybody else does either, and that's just my personal opinion. However, Christians get into a certain mode when they would like to see a change happen with their family members or with themselves within the physical world. They go inside to pray. They close their eyes and go into their subconscious mode to pray to a figurative God, to a certain consciousness, a certain Christ consciousness that is pure. That is the same exact thing witches are doing when they go inside to conduct spell work, when they go into their subconsciouses. Witches all understand that we are all gods within ourselves. And where Christianity differs from witchcraft is the coming of Christ stood to embody all of the pure ways to conduct all of this witchcraft. And it took the emphasis off the human, the witch ability to do all these things, and put it through a scope of purity and called it Christ. And there was a massive following afterwards, where Christians and the conquest of Catholicism and everything else burned out all of the qualities that made us witches back then. But what it ultimately, its ultimate purpose was to take the emphasis off of our non-omnipotent selves and put it on something that is omnipotent and holy. So when Christians pray, they're essentially conducting witchcraft in their own right. They're just doing it from a standpoint of view, and they're placing it on a figurative concept. Whereas, like I said, witches are erasing that whole side of things and just doing it simply for their own selves and using their own moral code to do it. Both forms of witchcraft, Jesus was a witch, both forms of witchcraft are extremely effective. However, one of them, the Christian side, has been indoctrinated and to a point that has demonized the witchcraft side of it all. Again, I'll get super into this in a video where I outline witchcraft versus Christianity. Back to the point. When a witch wants to conduct a spell, when a witch wants to see a physical change in their environment, they'll go to a place, a prey station, if you will, where they have a better ability to tap into their subconscious. And a lot of the ways that witches do this is by setting up an altar. On top of a witch's altar, you will find physical representations of spiritual or esoteric concepts. On the pagan pentagram, there are 5 nodes: earth, air, water, fire, and spirit. As you learn the hermetic principles and you learn the people who are subject to these principles, you will learn how to craft your spells around certain people and certain, let me back up. So the more you know about the 7 principles, and the more you know about the people that are subject to them, the better you are able to conduct a spell to receive a certain output from that spell. And so on the pagan pentagram, like I said, that there are 5 nodes, and the four of those nodes are air, earth, water, and fire, and they represent the elements in nature. And so a witch will put on her altar something physical representing one of those elements. So for the element of fire, she'll put a stick of incense on her altar. For the element of, for the element of air, she'll put a stick of incense on her altar. For the element of fire, she might put a candle. For the element of earth, she might put a crystal or anything of raw material energy. And if she wants to represent something watery in her spell work, she wants to focus and conduct spell work with a zeroed in focus on something that involving water, the polarity of water, the element of water, the person's natal chart. If the person's natal chart is centered if the person's natal chart has a lot of water elements, she might really emphasize the water representation on top of her altar. So she might put a bowl of water. A witch can use any of these elements to aid her in the process of conducting spell work. And it's all for the purpose of tapping into that subconscious, to just get yourself into a mode where you can directly access the astral plane, the mental plane, where all things happen first, where all changes derive from. A lot of the times, witches with their covens will go deep into the woods so that they can have access to all of it, to nature. They can have an up close and personal connection medium towards nature. So they'll go out into the woods and they'll start a fire, which represents the element of fire on the pagan pentagram. They'll get naked so that it thins the physical into the spiritual, or it erodes the layer or the barrier that stands between being completely in subconscious, completely operating completely from your subconscious with no regards to people. It just puts them in a mode. It gets wow. I need to slow down and back up. If a witch, to better access the subconscious mode, sometimes a witch will take away some of the things that separate her from her subconscious approach to life. So she might take her clothes off and dance around a fire. That is essentially her getting closer to the natural elements of the world, the element being fire in this specific scenario. These are all types of things that witches do, but like I said, it's all solely for the purpose of getting to that mode where they are super in tune with their subconscious. You will see a lot of witches' gifts played out the best when they are super into that subconscious mode. Like for instance, in a previous video where I was reading tarot cards, I lit incense and so I lit incense and I had crystals around to have more of a correlation in my specific time period. Basically, so I could have more of an influence of nature's elements, or at least my visual representation, a visual representation given to me from these things in front of me to represent nature, so that I could feel closer to nature, so that I could be in more of a natural state, which is where the subconscious always is. The subconscious is the most basic natural level of existence in the world. Again, there are four: mind, matter, spirit, and energy. Mind is correlated to the subconscious. So some of the types of spells that we conduct on each other, and some of these I'll note out, and some of these fall between being of black magic era or being of white magic type of spell, right? So certain things that you can do to an individual are: you could perform a love spell on them. You could energetically influence somebody to respond to you in a loving way. That is called a love spell. You could do a banishing spell, where you get this person's energetic influence completely out of your environment or somebody else's. See, we are all connected amongst energetic cords. You could look at life, you could look at all the people in life as being connected through a matrix, okay? A matrix of energy. No matter what the geographical distance is between a person and another, if you have established any subconscious contact with that individual in any way whatsoever, you have access to them amongst these energetic cords, okay? So if you conduct a love spell on somebody, you are basically tapping into your subconscious and energetically influencing them amongst this energetic grid. So you could, in turn, banish somebody from your immediate environment or from somebody else's. Now, this is a black magic. This is a dark art category. If you wanted to, let's say you were interested in somebody and you wanted to, let's say that they were taken, that they were already involved with another individual, you could perform a banishing spell, acquire things for your altar representing that individual and the other individual that you would like to banish, and go into your subconscious mode and energetically influence along those lines that person leaving that individual. It's called a banishing spell. Another type of spell would be a binding spell, which was referenced at the beginning of this video, something that I did on accident. This is a spell performed where you would like to restrict or limit a person's ability to leave you or leave a certain situation, or it just binds them energetically from being able to do certain things. You could do any type of specific binding spell that you need. So yeah, love spells, binding spells, banishing spells. There are protection spells too in life. There's all kinds of spells. I'm not going to be getting into like all the types that there are. I just want to give the science. It's not really. I want to give you the understanding, I suppose, of how all these types of things are. Just the breakdown, I guess, the spiritual breakdown of spell work. But yeah, so the types: banishing, spell, banishing, love, protection spells. Sorry, guys. You could perform a protection spell. You could center it around your house. You can center it around your body. You can center around any type of conceptual centering. You can perform. And this is just an energetic type of hold that you put on an inanimate object or a person that protects it from anything of your choice. So that is a basic overview of spell work and craft work and